Welcome to a world where science meets innovation, where groundbreaking research is transforming how we approach aging and healthcare. We're excited to introduce a visionary leader shaping the future of longevity, Maria Marinova. Maria holds a PhD in the biology of aging and reproductive longevity, delving deep into the mysteries of how we age and how we can extend the prime of life. But her journey doesn't stop in the lab. With a background in academia, venture capital, and venture creation, Maria has a unique ability to connect cutting-edge research with real-world solutions. Maria is a driving force in the exciting field of DeSci, decentralized science. As a core team member of Vita DAO, she's revolutionizing how we fund and advance longevity research. By leveraging the power of blockchain technology, Maria is helping to democratize science, enabling faster discoveries and more impactful outcomes. Maria's passion goes beyond traditional boundaries, combining science, innovation, and technology to reimagine the future of aging and healthcare. Her work with Vita DAO is creating opportunities for a healthier, longer life for us all. Join us in HealthGevity podcast as we explore Maria Marinova's groundbreaking journey, her vision for aging research, and how decentralization is powering the next big leap in healthcare.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of HealthGevity podcast. Today, we have a scientist again from the field of longevity, but this time we have someone that probably is not as much as other scientists active in the social media, but today we have some amazing topics we want to talk about. So we have Maria Marinova. Welcome to our podcast, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Maria, you are working, as we already talked, that in a Vita DAO. It's a kind of decentralized autonomous organization, and you are working with a bunch of other scientists and people interested in the field of longevity. Please, a little bit tell us about your journey, how everything started. Where was the first time that you became interested? Probably many, many years ago, before your academic, let's say, path. How did you become interested in longevity? What is your story?
Yeah, of course. I became interested in longevity very, very long time ago. I knew that's what I wanted to do in my career since I was a student, since I was in high school. And that's why I went on and did my bachelor's in molecular biology and then my PhD in biology of aging. And as many people, I probably got into the rabbit hole that was online with content from Aubrey de Grey and David Sinclair and so on. So I would say they were the people that got me into the field. And that's why actually after my studies, I moved all the way to the other side of the world in Australia to do my PhD in David Sinclair's second lab in Sydney. And there I worked on a quite interesting project in reproductive aging, which was quite a new field or a new topic at the moment, and it still is quite at its early stages. And while my project was very interested, I decided that going forward, I wanted to leave academia and go on the commercial side, actually help discoveries to reach patients that need them the most. And for that, you would need that part of translation of science into medicine. And I went through some programs at school, the university, and some other conferences, and decided that I wanted to step into the venture world. However, there weren't many opportunities to do that in Australia, especially in longevity biotech. So at that time, I found about Vita DAO. It was a project at the intersection of crypto or blockchain and longevity. And since I was in both of these prior, I thought it was the perfect place for me to go in and try it out. And they were trying to do exactly this, fund translational science and then commercialize companies with it. And because it was such a flexible structure, it allowed me to commit as many hours per week as I was able to while I was still doing my PhD on the other side of the world and connect with people all over Europe and the States. And that really helped me get a hands-on experience in finding projects, evaluating projects, and seeing a lot more broad spectrum than my one PhD project. And that actually helped me to get my position in the VC firm after my PhD. So I did a bit of VC and venture creation, but I was still contributing to VitaDAO on the side because they were, again, quite flexible. And eventually my commitment grew over 3 years until it became a full-time position.
Fantastic. This is quite an interesting journey. So you said that, I don't know, if you, have you worked with David Sinclair directly, maybe in the lab or any project, or no?
He was one of my supervisors or mentors. He is based in Harvard. And while he did visit our lab in Sydney, it wasn't all the time there, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm asking because, for me, he is a very interesting scientist, that actually one of the leading scientists in terms of recognizing or considering aging as a disease, right? So he always has talked about it, that yes, aging, we can consider it, even though this is the last question that I wanted to ask you. But anyway, I would like to maybe start with that how about yourself, your personal perspective about aging? Even though a lot of scientists I know that they do not agree to considering or treating aging as a disease, but this is a very interesting topic. And actually, to tell you the truth, I'm writing my third book about it and then working on that, not just alone. I have invited 100 longevity experts, some of them for and some of them maybe against this notion. But I want to know personally your idea about this, and what would be some maybe consequences, both positive and negative, on treating or considering aging as a disease.
I think aging is treatable, regardless of whether you consider it a disease or not. And being recognized as a treatable condition that, if treated, would benefit many people and spare the healthcare system many billions of dollars. I think it will be a huge shift in thinking in healthcare in general, going more towards prevention versus treating causes of aging after they've done a lot of damage. And at this stage, they're probably reversible.
Yeah, absolutely. And, interestingly enough, actually, we somehow had some examples in the history of science. About 1979, we had osteoporosis as a condition, actually as a natural condition, and it was not considered as a disease directly, but later, and they said, okay, this is the consequence of aging. So it's aging, since aging is natural, all the consequences of aging also is natural. But when we know that even cancer is natural, so natural does not mean a good thing, necessarily. So later on, they found out, no, this is a serious condition and we can do something about it. It's treatable. We have to do something about it. So this is actually one project we are working on, HealthGevity Nation, to bring this knowledge and awareness to people, even not maybe very scientifically, because a lot of people do not understand the details of the science of longevity. But we want to tell them that we can do something about it, even with small steps. There's some lifestyle intervention, right? By your sleep, your exercise, diet, mindset, all of these, you can do something about it to at least okay, if you cannot stop it now, but you can postpone it, you can make it actually easier and at least prevent some early age-related diseases. So let me ask you about DeSci. Okay, nowadays a lot of people talk about DeFi, DeSci, all of those organizations that are decentralized. So tell me that what exactly is the DeSci movement, and how does it align with the world of longevity and the work of longevity that you are working on?
First of all, maybe I'll start how it aligns with the crypto space. I think there is a lot of overlap between people in crypto and people in longevity. They're both willing to push the boundaries of the field and innovate, and they have a vision that they're willing to work towards. That might be in contradiction to the status quo, as I said, to the healthcare system or to the financial system. and that was mentioned by Balaji Srinivasan, that longevity might be to healthcare what crypto was to finance, entirely changing the terms of the debate. And I think that's a very insightful quote. As you mentioned, first considering it as a disease or something treatable, and going the more preventative route. But then DeSci, yeah, I think it has a huge potential to provide an additional source of funding or an alternative source of funding, and not just funding, to a community of scientists in fields especially that are neglected by traditional funding sources like the government. But there is a lot of interest and a huge community behind them, like longevity, like women's health. There are a few others now, like cryopreservation and synthetic biology and so on. That are all very important areas. But for one reason or another, they're a little underfunded.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So yeah, in the academic space, I think how most scientists get funding is by grants, by applying to grants, and they're usually under a certain umbrella. So you can only apply for funding that has a topic attached to it, and most of it is specific diseases. Some of it is aging, but the competition is of course great. So not everyone can get funding for their aging project. And because of certain incentives, there is I think less incentives for scientists to attempt really novel and groundbreaking projects. Rather, they're incentivized to do more incremental stuff and build upon other approaches. And there are actually studies that science has been becoming less and less disruptive over time. So what we want to do is incentivize new ideas and help scientists be creative again and provide the funding to do so.
Absolutely. And, that's why I'm focusing again on this, that, considering aging as a problem, treatable or solvable problem, is that when we do such a thing, especially in let's say, regard to governments, they start taking action, and we need to actually raise the awareness among people, so people can, by selecting the government, by changing them, by changing the politician. For example, what happened with Saudi Arabia. Last year with Jose Luis Cordero, we were there. They invested about $20 billion with Evolution Foundation and some other organization on that. And this is so amazing. And I think this is a consequence of, that awareness that the governors and politicians have about let's say, all those expenses of aging, that how much the society is paying actually by neglecting the intervention in aging. So governments definitely will play an important role in that. That's why we in HealthGevity Nation, actually, we are trying to create a parliament of scientists and both politicians, so that push more pressure on governments to invest more in the field of longevity. All right, so tell me, what are some maybe promising projects or innovations in longevity research that the Vita DAO is currently work on or involved in?
Sure. I can tell you some of my favorite projects. So one of them is called Matrix, and it's actually one of our spin-outs. So it was a scientific project that we funded with the lab of Vera Gorbunova, who's a very famous scientist in the longevity field. And now we have some data. We formed a company, and I've continued conducting research as a CRO, hopefully towards developing an asset and a drug formulation. So the company is built on comparative biology. Vera's lab works on long-lived species, one of which is the naked mole rat. It lives around 10 times longer than the mouse, even though it's the same size.
Wow.
And it has some very distinct molecular pathways and features that are pro-longevity and anti-cancer. So we're trying to harness these in a way that they can be applied to humans as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. And actually, I was watching one of your videos. I think it was in Dublin Summit or something. you were talking about the problem that we have in the research in terms of not using the, let's say, female animals or rats, right, in the research. Can you a little bit talk about it? It was interesting for me.
Sure, sure. So my PhD was in ovarian biology, so I guess I only studied the females. But in general, I think in all studies, both sexes should be represented because women are not smaller men. There are many biological differences. And you would see in multiple studies when an aging intervention is tested, it has different effects in males versus females. And we don't understand why that is, but it is the case, not just for aging, but also in different diseases and responses to different treatments. And we see this in cardiovascular disease, for example. The diagnostic for certain diseases is based only on males, and that's why it has been diagnosed in women incorrectly for so long, which is obviously negatively impacting people, 50% of the population.
Yeah,
So it is
absolutely.
quite important. And there is a reason why it hasn't been done so, because it introduces more variability in the data, and you need a larger cohort size, which of course is more expensive, and funding is a problem in science.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So talking about DeSci, tell me, how do you see the future of DeSci actually evolving in the context of, aging and healthcare research? Let's say like 5, 10, 20 years away from now, how everything has changed in this field.
I think going forward, we want to go beyond funding. So currently we have been allocated funding to projects that we think are promising, but going forward, we want to be more of a driver and have people come to us with their innovative ideas that might be a little bit too bold for academia or a little bit too risky for venture. So we want to bridge that gap and provide scientists with a space to play around with ideas and actually be creative, and then build them together with them and advance it towards creation of IP, and ideally put that IP on chain as we have been doing with our IP NFT technology, and then tokenizing it to create intellectual property tokens, which allows the entire community to actually own part of an IP asset, which would look very interesting when we come to the more clinical stages and drug development. So instead of the IP being held by large corporations, big pharma, as usual, it could be actually held by the patients that would benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with the technologies of blockchain, IoT, AI, all of these technologies that we have, everything would be much easier. All right, let me ask you a question which mostly I ask most of the people, scientists, influencers, experts in the field of longevity, and I've seen many of them, I've talked to them. We are working on the field of longevity, but I see most of them, or some of them, let's say, they are not, let's say, following those lifestyle intervention for longevity themselves. For example, sleep, exercise, even diet. Why? I mean, this is a kind of contradiction. You are trying to find some solutions for extending the health span, not only the lifespan of, let's say, in animals and of course for people, but most of them themselves do not pay that much attention. Some of them say, okay, in the next 10 years, we will have a technology that can reverse all of these damages that we have. And so I want to ask you, how about yourself in your personal life? How much do you take it serious? And then what is the most important, maybe the most 3 important things that you yourself, as a scientist in this field, to, maybe, I don't know, postpone those aging related diseases, or to live younger, longer?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really important point. People are usually disappointed when I tell them because it's all of the boring stuff. but they are the base, and they are the actually most impactful things you could do. So I do put an effort into sticking to a routine around sleep and around movement. So I think those are my main two things, sleep and exercise. And that's something that I actively had to work towards and change my mindset around, because in many years before that, I was very much on the other spectrum of this, like sleep is for the weak, it's a waste of time, I could be doing more important things. But I've understood how important it is for health, and how if you don't have a good night of sleep, then everything you do towards your health during the day doesn't really count as much. And it's supposed to, including exercise, the benefits there would be lower than if you had slept before. And yeah, being active, I think, is another key part. So I do try to stick to a routine there with the gym, and also other types of sports that I think are just more fun, because I think that's important as well. I think if it is fun, it's a lot more likely for this to stick around for a longer time, rather if you're forcing yourself to go to the gym, if you're not enjoying it. And yeah, I guess diet would be the third one. I don't have any strict or specific diet. It would just focusing on the things that you shouldn't eat, or
Any
eating.
fasting or something like this, fasting routines?
I used to do the 16/8 fast, which was for me just skipping breakfast, and that's very easy for me. Probably in the past 10 years, just because I don't have time for breakfast in the morning. But in the recent year, I've been revisiting that, and with some studies around circadian rhythms, I started eating breakfast because that kind of activates a lot of your circadian rhythm genes. So nutrition or feeding is quite linked to circadian rhythm, and also movement help kickstart the circadian rhythm. So ideally, I would eat breakfast and lunch, but not dinner or very early dinner. So I'm trying to shift it that way a little bit based
Yeah,
on new evidence, I
fantastic.
think.
Yeah, that's great. You know, for me also was the same many years. For many years, I used to sleep 4 hours a night, and I thought that I'm doing the best and I'm saving like 4 hours studying and reading and learning all of this stuff. But the impact later was terrible actually on my health, and that's why I started to find out what are the most important steps that I have to take, and that's why I wrote this book, HealthGevity Journey, which is based on 12 pillars, and the first one is sleep, because as you said, nothing works if you do not have a high quality sleep, not only just let's say 8 or 7 hours a night. And then of course exercise, let's say nutrition and all of this stuff. One of our goals in HealthGevity Nation is to simplify the science of health and longevity for people. And that's why we are going to universities and even schools, so we can talk to the new generation, because it's a kind of lifestyle. We know that almost 80% of the whole longevity and living healthier and longer is related somehow to the lifestyle that we have. That's why we are doing this project, and tell children from the early age that how you can control your lifestyle so that you can avoid a lot of aging related diseases. So when we talk about age, we actually, most of people do not exactly think about that we have different kinds of ages. Even not all of our organs have the same age somehow. So, for example, we have biological age, we have chronological age. I want to ask you maybe this one also, if you would like to just answer that. Is there any difference between your chronological and biological? Have you done any tests like DNA methylation, I don't know, telomeres, or out there are some tests that can tell you actually the biological age? Have you seen any result? This is what I'm talking about, from the lifestyle that you have chosen, that now maybe you have a lower biological age than chronological.
Yeah, there are many of those tests. I haven't used many of them. I've used glycan age, which, yes, it is lower for me. All of those, I guess, measure a different thing, different aspect of aging.
Right.
So I wouldn't consider any test to be indicative of biological age itself, but rather a certain aspect of aging. So my glycan age was lower than my chronological age. It was around 23, and I'm 29 at the moment, which
Fantastic.
was quite good. And
Yeah.
I also have some like digital health apps like Humanity. My biological age there is also, I would say, 4 years younger than my chronological. And now there is a new cardiovascular age in the Aura app, which is also quite interesting. I like
Mhm.
monitoring the resting heart rate in the HRV.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell me about the future that you see about the longevity. For example, when do you think we can reach the longevity escape velocity, what Aubrey de Grey is talking about? You know, there are a lot of numbers, some say 10, 15, 20 years, but not just only that. I want to know your perspective actually about the future, that when do you think we can stop aging and then later reverse it? And let's say uh, in the next 20, 30, 50 years, how do you see the uh, exponential growth actually in this field? Because you know that now we have technologies that every year they are double in performance and let's say less than the price, faster, cheaper, and more precise. So how do you see the future of longevity in this term?
Yeah, I can't make any predictions, but I am optimistic. There has been a lot more interest and funding coming into the space, which of course is what we need to advance it. Um, and we have a few things so far that work across species, it seems, and adding these together might have an additive or synergistic benefits. So you've spoken to Aubrey, as you said. I'm sure he can tell you more about it, about the combination of treatments. And I think that's just the beginning with other technological advancements that are happening. I think things should be progressing faster in the future, but we don't know when are we going to see that hockey stick increase.
Yeah, when I ask some other scientists or experts in the field, each of them they work in a specific part of it. For example, some work on the hallmarks of aging, intervention, different fields, different types of it. But I want to know about maybe your personal goal for the next 5, 10, 20, even years. What is something you're passionate about, something that you probably think that if you can do something in that particular part of the longevity science, it can somehow maybe revolutionize this field. Maybe not just one thing, maybe few factors, that if you can do something about it, can totally, let's say, change the story. Is there anything, something special? Have you thought about this, or no, you're just doing your research?
Yeah, well, I'm not in academia anymore, so I'm not doing the research myself. But one
Mhm.
thing I would like to do is enable scientists to do research that is transformative to the field. And I would like to look in a different direction, and ideally have more collaborative and more interdisciplinary projects. So bringing other expertise into longevity, because I think a breakthrough is much more likely to happen when you bring an outside perspective and look at the problem with a different view, to generate a
Can you give me
different
an
way of
example?
looking
Which field do you mean, for example, bring what other science into longevity?
For example, synthetic biology or even bioengineering. Like you can think of many different of these examples that just provide a fresh perspective, because the aging field is not that big. It's the same people going to the same conferences, and many of them are brilliant. But we keep seeing the same kind of interventions that are being tested. And that is, of course, needed to advance it from all of the different animal model to humans. We need to make improvements on the things that are working. but I don't think that's gonna make a dramatic change. I think we also need to look at more innovative approaches in order to find something that might have a more dramatic effect of extending healthy lifespan.
Yeah, fantastic. So going back to our first question about the aging, because this is something for many years actually, and even when I was reading the Jose's book, The Death of Death. I don't know. Have you read that book or not yet?
I
Maybe
haven't read it yet. I've
not
seen him
yet. Yeah.
speak about it many times. Only read
Yeah,
the
Jose actually is talking about maybe 20, 30, 50, 100, maybe years even later, because this is something that we're going toward. But before that, let's say there are a lot of steps that we can take, which, every single day in the morning when we get up, 100,000 people have died from aging-related diseases, most of them. So seeing all these people because not taking action of the government dying, this is terrible. For example, in the story of COVID-19, we found out that all the government scientists, researchers, they got together and they could do something that before that it was impossible, right? Developing a vaccine or drugs in 2 to 3 years, it was something impossible, but they did it. What do you think if tomorrow all the governments, I mean, all governments with all research centers say that, okay, we need to spend enough time, effort, money, support to find out anything about aging and the interventions that we can do about it so that we can find a treatment for it. In this case, how do you think, let's say, the world would change and how fast maybe we can get to that point?
Sure, that would be fantastic if you can make it happen.
Mhm.
I think science advances with resources and talent and time being spent on it. And even like when you put all these things together, you would still need a sufficient amount of time to develop new medicines and test them in people and so on. But of course, there are all of these limiting factors apart from time that would just extend that time horizon. So if we can bring everyone in a cohesive effort, I think that would accelerate things dramatically, of course.
Fantastic. All right. So we don't have actually enough time. There are a lot of more questions, but I would have one or two more questions for you. So you're a young scientist actually in this field, but what advice would you give to young scientists and entrepreneurs or people who are longevity enthusiasts, but they are in the early, let's say, age of starting their career? Something that probably 10 years ago you wouldn't know, right? But now you know it. What advice would you give them to do actually so that they probably can be more successful in this field?
Yeah, I would definitely advise to get in the field as early as possible and to start working there because while it has grown over the past couple of years, it's still very small and there is a lot to be done. So if you have an idol scientist that you want to work with, just reach out, go to conferences, create connections. People are very passionate about it and very willing to work and mentor young people. So there is, a lot of opportunity.
Okay, maybe in one sentence, if I want to play this video for, let's say, school students, college students, if you wanted to tell it very shortly about this, what exactly would you tell them? Because some of them, they think it like as a career for their life, right? So how would you motivate them exactly to enter this field?
I would say go for it. Reach out, send the email, join the DAO. There are many things to be done and you can help.
Yeah, of course, this notion of helping yourself first, because we know that the more we know about aging and the interventions that we can do about it, whether it's technological or from the lifestyle points of view, we help ourselves first, and then we help actually other people with that. So tell me maybe what you are passionate the most about in the whole field of longevity, something that you every single day maybe think about it and passionate about.
I'm also passionate about the whole field, but I guess my core expertise and something that I spent many years on is reproductive aging and ovarian longevity. And I think I'm going to talk about this because it's a more obscure area. Less people work on it and less people pay attention. And again, it impacts half of the population that are women. So we should be paying more attention, and it's different from a different respect as well, because the ovary is the first organ to start aging and declining in the human body. So it could be used as a model system as well. And we see already that many aging interventions also impact ovarian aging because of these similar cells in terms of tissue and environment, but there is also a ovary-specific side of things. There is this oocyte or egg counter that counts down from birth to menopause as you lose eggs over time, and there might be something that we can do there. But it's still very, very early, and there's a lot we don't understand, which makes it exciting for me as a scientist.
Fantastic. Well, there was a video, actually, I don't know if you have seen it or not, in David Wood, probably you know him as a futurist, that, yeah, he's the founder of London Futurist. There was a video, The Fable of the Dragon Tyrant, which is talking about the aging as a dragon, which is just killing hundreds of thousands of people every single day. I got an idea from this, and I named my third book Caging Aging. So it means that it is a kind of dragon that we need to put it in a cage, control it, and try actually stop it from killing people. So I would like to know that what perspective, if I invite you to write maybe, let's say, few pages from your perspective about treating aging as a disease, what would you say, from which perspective you would look at, let's say, this, that can be beneficial for society?
I think it comes down to what we talked about before. You can consider all of the diseases are natural. That doesn't mean we shouldn't fight against them. It's the same for aging. And there needs to be an effort there. And it's the same for menopause, if you look at it from a women's health and women's longevity perspective. And we actually get the most pushback on this from women who have undergone menopause, so they're a little older, and they're very against it, like you are.
Well, what is the reason, Maria, what is the reason that some scientists, even in the field of longevity, they say, no, we have to accept aging as something natural? So I don't want to name actually them, but there are some that they even have accepted dying from the aging related diseases, let alone dying itself. Okay. So how do you see this perspective? For me, it's not actually logical and rational to accept aging as something natural. For me, it's the same as accepting all other diseases from cancer and others as a natural and say, okay, we have to just accept it. So what do you think? I am interested to know that maybe probably you have talked to some of them. How do they see the whole thing?
I think that's the more traditional view, I would say. Like, it's natural, maybe we can slow it down, but it will still happen. Like, it's too complex for us to fix. And it might be with the current technology or the current understanding, but that doesn't mean it's not fixable in the future. And I think we should keep trying until we find a solution.
Yeah, right. That's great. Okay, maybe a question that I haven't asked you, or something that you would like to share with us, with our community. Please let us know.
Maybe just following up on what I said about DeSci and what we're trying to do in the future with VitaDAO is to create a community of young scientists that have innovative idea and they want to test them out, maybe reach out to me, and we can see how this can work out.
Yeah, this is fantastic. We are so much interested, actually. In HealthGevity Nation, that we see it as a nation. We even have created a passport. We will send you more information about it because we believe that there is no difference between all other organizations without any border. All of our goal is the same. We want to stop aging from killing us. So we are interested in collaborating with other organizations, even like yours. We'll definitely be more in touch with you, but let us know if there is any specific link so that more people can go there and learn more about what you are doing and how to get in touch with you, please.
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Twitter or X and LinkedIn as well. And then the VitaDAO website is just vitadao.com. So that's easy.
All right, that's fantastic. Definitely, we will share the links on the video description. Thank you so much for your time. It was amazing talking to you, and definitely we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thank you.